words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. I know there's a fair number of teachers here in this congregation, and in our day and age, those that are going to teach are educated and then tested for competency. Teachers also now hand out reading lists, and students know what they're expected to read on their own as part of their education. And this is quite different from the first century James is talking about, when everything was verbal. The words used to educate had a profound effect on people. James was quite clear that to be a teacher was a very big responsibility. Teachers, rabbis, shaped beliefs and influenced everyone around them. There were no textbooks and no internet for students to get additional views and thoughts on a subject. Many of us here were educated prior to the internet, not all of us. And we had to go to bookstores to purchase our books. There was no internet to even have them drop shipped to your house. I still remember the mad dash to the bookstore when I was at Northeastern to get the least marked up copy so that, I wouldn't have somebody else's views. Remember last week, the Syrophoenician woman, and Jesus was the student then rather than the teacher. As Dean Tom pointed out last week, it was Jesus' coming to Jesus moment. Well, now, Jesus wants to know what the disciples have learned about him. They've been traveling with him and should by now have a good sense of him. Have they learned to have faith in him? They have witnessed miracle after miracle. They've listened to his teaching. He has taught them to pray. He starts with a simple question. Who do the people say that I am? Now, he heard the answers before. He was well aware of who the people thought he was, but then he digs a bit deeper. And he wants to find out from those who are closest to him who they say he is. Has his time with them been transformative? Have they come to faith in him? Peter gets it right. You are the Messiah, the anointed one. An aha moment. They've got it. He's got it. But instead of savoring that moment, Jesus tells them exactly what that means. He tells them he must undergo great suffering, be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Wait, killed? No. The Messiah should come in great glory and save the Israelites and bring power and great glory. Killed isn't part of their plan. This is not what they imagined would happen. It's the exact opposite of what they expected would happen. The disciples do not like what Jesus is teaching them right now. He's telling them what being a disciple looks like, and it isn't what they expect. Peter went so far as to rebuke him. They thought Jesus was possessed. The disciples believed that they were following the Messiah who would come triumphantly into Israel and save them. They weren't ready for news about suffering and death. Now, during this time, they were traveling through Caesarea Philippi, and they could see the temples built for the gods Pan and Baal. And they could also see the temple built to honor Caesar. Now, these gods required sacrifices. And here was Jesus saying, he is the sacrifice. He will die. If people want to follow him, then they must be willing to do that too. It's a radical commitment that he is asking for. Jesus is drawing a line in the sand. This isn't just a feel-good about yourself way of life. He's being honest about what will happen to him and what they must do and what we must do if we choose to follow him. Who do you say Jesus is to anyone who asks you? When asked why you go to church, what's your response? Or do you just steer clear of that question, which is easy to do these days? The gospel is clear when it talks about a sinful generation. And that conversation could be today the same as it was 2,000 years ago. They still had so much to learn, as do we. We're both students and teachers. What does it mean today, in this day and age, to follow Jesus? Some of you have heard my story about a retreat when I was at the Society of St. John the Evangelist in Cambridge, and I spent a great deal of time with the question, who do you say that I am? And then in the reverse, who does Jesus say that I am? It was a transformative time for me, and I really had to look at myself through a very different lens. Have you ever had a conversation with Jesus to figure out who you are in God's eyes? And I would like to suggest that you spend some time with these questions. Who do you say Jesus is? Who does Jesus say you are? And what does that mean in your daily life? What actions do you take so that Jesus and your faith in Jesus comes through to those around you? How do we tell our story to our family and friends? How might we tell our story to someone on the street? Now, here at the cathedral, we've begun talking about evangelism, the big E word. And you will hear more about this in the weeks and months to come. But I will tell you that evangelism is what we are called to as Christians. It doesn't need to be scary. We need to be able to tell our story. Who is Jesus to us? And what difference does it make that we have faith in our resurrected Christ? Does it make a difference in our life? Does it make a difference in the people that we meet? Having faith in Jesus was for the disciples and for us life-changing. God is in each one of us every moment of every day, not just on Sunday mornings. We know that, right? So spend some time thinking about what your God story is so that you can tell someone how this person, Jesus, our Messiah, the Anointed One, makes a difference in your life. Amen.